Appreciate so much the meal that I was blessed to enjoy. A wonderful meal we had at the steakhouse, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm actually still quite full from that. But this evening we have a very interesting subject, and that subject is, what does it mean to be the light of the world? Before we dive into this subject this evening, we want to propose some opponents or components of this subject. Children, most of them, hate darkness. They don't like to be surrounded with darkness. Thieves normally steal at nighttime. And then deer cross the streets at night. So then, concluding the entire matter, what do we think about when we think about darkness, confusion, misery? We think about those individuals who may be going through hard times, that are sitting in the dark because the dark brings no joy. When I think about the beginning, in the beginning when God created the heaven and earth, and the earth was without form. Notice, without form and void, empty, no structure. And darkness filled the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And then we have God, what we have known as his first words ever spoken. God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. When I imagine this light, I imagine a brilliant, illuminating excellence of brightness. This indicates that there was no light in the earth before God had created it. Therefore, it was filled with darkness. Genesis 1:2. Strong defined this darkness as literal blackness, confusion, misery. I find it interesting, in fact, that misery is associated with darkness, but happiness is associated with light. When the light appeared, darkness comprehended not. John 1:5. The sun and moon were not yet created, thus from which came this brilliant, magnificent light. But the Lord shall be unto thee an everlasting light, Isaiah 60:19. Who hath only immortality, dwelling in the light, 1 Timothy 6:16. For God is light, and in him is no darkness at all, 1 John 1:5. Jesus tells his children that they are the light of the world. Matthew 5:14-16. We will notice the following. How are we the light? Why are we given the duty of being the light? And then the final place, what are we to do with the light? How are we the light? Before we can define this term and understand how are we light, what is light? In fact, a couple of definitions of it. The first definition is Merriam-Webster. He describes or defines it as steady giving off a form of radiation that makes vision possible. Strong's define it as to shine or make manifest, especially by rays. And then Thayer's defines it as to throw or give off or out immense light, heat, to send out by a lamp. So then, with all of those definitions, we can conclude that this light is not our own. The light does not originate with man. Therefore, it is not our light. Now notice, if it is not our light, but Jesus says you are the light of the world, then we must be light carriers. We are simply carrying this light. So likened unto candles, we must be lit. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. John 1:4. So then, if we are carriers of that light, from whom or what is the source of this light? Notice John 1:6-9. John 1:6-9. There was a man sent from God, whom name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light which lighted every man that cometh into the world. The light is Christ. John 1:4, 6, 32, 15, 1. Jesus again said unto them, I am the light of the world. John 8:12. So then, like John the Baptizer, we have received the light from the source being Jesus Christ, and now we bear witness of this light. Strong's define bear witness as one to testify, to bear record, to give an honest report. We are the light of the world in the sense that we receive and affirm the light of Christ and are carriers of it. We are instruments chosen by God to get his message to a lost and dying world. We are the instruments, if you will, we are flashlights in order to lead those in literal and spiritual darkness to the source of that light which we shine, Jesus the Christ. So that means we must shine. Notice, why are we given the duty of being the light? Since before the existence of time, light and darkness has always been distinguished. In fact, light was divided from darkness. And God saw the light and that it was good. Now notice, and God divided the light from the darkness. He didn't combine the two. So then we can conclude that it doesn't matter how much darkness surrounds light, light will always prevail. Amen. It doesn't matter how small of a light it is and how big of a darkness it may be, light will always prevail. In fact, if you don't believe me, try this. As a child, I love playing hide and seek. In fact, I still do. And we would go and hide under the beds with flashlights. And the closer you got to the wall, the smaller the light got. And then as you backed up from the wall, the darkness started to disappear. It doesn't matter how many lights are lit. It doesn't matter how confiscated that darkness is, the light will always prevail. Jesus is the light which brought life into the world. The light which the world could not and still cannot comprehend. John 1, 6 through 10, 3, 19. Strong defines division as separate, different, distinct. So in other words, light and darkness have no fellowship with each other. Right. You're either in light or you're in darkness. Jesus is the light of the world. All that follow with him shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. Many don't understand how important light is. Many don't think about how real darkness is. Notice the physical application. If one of my 5 senses had to be taken, my sight would not be one of them that I would want taken. Not being able to see something is devastating. Not being able to see where you're going is frightening. In fact, I know that this is true because when darkness comes, you cut your lights on. When you're traveling down the road, you don't travel without the beamers on. You travel with the lights on. Amen. Therefore, light is frightening. You want to see where you're going. I would hate to be blind. Therefore, we must understand that the world, although the sun may be shining, the world spiritually is blind. That's right. They're in darkness. So if we can understand how miserable, how terrible it must be to be blind, how horrible it must be not to be able to rightly accept a compliment that someone says about your physical appearance. Well, why? Because you can't see yourself. If we can understand that, then we must put the two together. It's the same spiritually. They are blind. Jesus said to the Pharisees, they're trying to be teachers, but they're teaching false doctrine. He said, you be blind leaders of the blind. And guess what? You both shall fall into a ditch. We must understand and not be blinded by the physical light from the sun and think that the world is not in spiritual darkness, because they are. Jesus' purpose as being the light was to keep humanity from walking in darkness. His purpose of being lifted high above the ground was so that humanity can see him and stay away from darkness. Why? For he that walketh in darkness knoweth not whither he goeth. John 12:35. This light came to guide all men that choose to follow him. Notice the light is not going to force you to do something that you do not want to.
Amen.
This light is here to guide all men who choose to follow Christ.
Amen. Choose.
If we say that we have fellowship with him and walking in darkness, we lie and do not the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another, and the blood of Jesus Christ, his son, cleanseth. That word cleanseth means to continuously cleanse us from all sin.
Amen.
1 John 1:6-7.
Amen.
But guess what? You must be in the light.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
You must be in the light in order to receive this continual cleansing from sin. We bear witness of this light and are to be seen of men. You know, I find it interesting that those in Hollywood who bear the wrong light shine bright. I find it interesting that those who do not know the truth are willing to stand in front of people and try to teach them, thus saith the Lord, and do not know what that light is. But those who are given the command of shining, those who are giving the truth in order to shine the light, are hiding. They're choosing to couple this light in between the four walls of a church building. They're choosing to hide this light in between their homes. They're choosing to, when they go out and meet people, they're choosing to allow them to talk about God, but when we know God, we choose not to talk about Him. We choose to hide that light. It should not be so. Well, why? Because Jesus compares us to an illuminated city sitting on a hill. He says a city on a hill cannot be hid. When you think about New York City, New York, Los Angeles, California, Atlanta, Georgia, when you think about these great cities in this country, they're never dark. In fact, they're illuminated with light. Even in the nighttime, it seems daytime in the city. There's no stars. You can't see the stars because of the bright lights on the streets. Well then, brother, what about when the world sees us? Do they see the light? Do they see a person that knows God? Do they see a Christian not in name only but in deeds? Jesus said, you are the light of the world. We must be that light. The light is not to be hidden or smothered into a small corner or hidden underneath something or thrown into a dark alley or something, not giving light to men that are diligently searching, that are diligently lost and sincere about finding God. It is only able to give light into a small portion, a number of things, if that light is hindered. Matthew 5:15. Notice, it said, neither doth a man light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick. Well, why? On a candlestick, it giveth light unto all that are in the house. If I keep that light on a candle and then throw the lid over it, or if I keep that light in my room and shut the door, guess what? Everybody else is left in darkness. I'm the only one that is enjoying the light.
Amen.
Now, I want to make this statement. As a child, even now, everyone wants friends. Everyone wants someone to talk to, someone to enjoy your day, spend your day with, have a good time. As growing up in high school, I never wanted to be without my friends. I wanted to hang out and enjoy them. But why, if I wanted to enjoy them, why would I keep the fun stuff to myself? It's the same spiritually. Why would you want to be in the light by yourself? We must not hinder this light. This light is supposed to give light, to guide those who are in darkness, in order to point them to the source, which is Jesus Christ. The purpose of light was, will, and never have been to be hindered, but rather lead others out of darkness. Jesus said, and we alluded to this in the Bible class earlier. He said, and if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. Now, that drawing, meaning that all those who are interested in knowing the Lord, they will come and they will find him if they are diligently searching him. Amen. Well, why? Because he have us. We are his instruments on earth. We are the flashlights, if you will, on earth that are pointing those who are in darkness to Jesus. Mm-hmm. He said, and if I be lifted up, not you, not myself, but him.
Right.
Our Lord and Savior. He said he will draw all men. Doesn't matter where you're from. Doesn't matter where you've been. Doesn't matter what color you are. Doesn't matter whether you're boy, girl. He said he would draw all men unto him. John 12:32. In the third place, what are we to do with the light? Notice Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine before men. Why? So that they may see your good works. Why? So that they may glorify your Father which is in heaven. That is the purpose of shining the light. That is the purpose by which we are to be light to a spiritual, blind, and darkened world. Like any other physical light, we are to shine. And in fact, if you think that it's absurd to shine spiritually, then do not cut your lights on when you go home in the dark. Because we understand that in physical darkness, we need the beamers on in order to see.
Right.
We understand being at a football game that we want the light shining on the player so what? So we can see the action that is taking place. Well, guess what? Those who are in spiritual darkness those that are diligently seeking the Lord wants to see Christ.
Right.
So we're obligated to shine this light. We are to shine to provide sight. We are to provide understanding and do away with confusion. Before starting this sermon this evening, we alluded to darkness being compared and connected with misery, with confusion. Those who do not understand are in darkness. In fact, when the lights went off at Mom's house, I thought I knew the house well, but I did not. I bumped my knee on everything that I came across because I didn't know that it was there. Confusion. Did you not know, or were you aware, rather, that there are over 38,000 different religious bodies in this country alone?
Over.
There are many different religious bodies in this country alone. They are all teaching that they know Christ, some teaching that Christ never existed, some teaching that Christ was only a man. And then you have us, Christians. What are we to do about this? What are we obligated to do about this? We're obligated to shine. Not shine to fill yourself up or puff yourself up, but to shine in order to lead others to Christ. Christians are to provide spiritual light unto the entire world. Where the light shines, there shall be no darkness. In the darkest cave where there seems to be no hope, just a tiny glimpse of light provides sight. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Jesus stated, I am come a light into the world. Why did you come a light into the world, Lord? He said that whosoever, meaning whoever, all that believeth on me should not abide in darkness. Anyone that believes should be guided out of darkness into the marvelous light. That's our purpose for being the light of the world. Not to say that the light originated with humanity. For we know since the fall in the garden that humanity was destined to die. But because of what Jesus did, we're able to shine his glorious message into a dying and lost world. Christians are to bring forth his light. We are to shine this light that all who believe might be brought from darkness unto Jesus the Christ. So then how are we light? We are carriers of the light. We are carriers of the gospel message.
Right.
Why are we given the duty of being the light? We are obligated to shine the gospel message. In the same physical sense that your car has lights, its duty in the dark is to shine those lights. Where in the spiritual sense, our duty is to shine the light. What are we to do with the light? We are to shine the light, that is, share the gospel, so that others can see Jesus the Christ.
Amen.
So now we answer the question, what does it mean to be the light of the world? To be the light of the world is to point the world to Christ.
All right.
Family, there may be some here that are Christians. Perhaps they have not been shining the light. And I do understand that it is difficult, especially for a young man as myself, being surrounded by so many influences, so many different personalities. Social media, talk shows, commercials, anything that tries to pollute your mind and to create darkness around you.
Right.
It's not worth it. Some of us may have become discouraged from shining that light because our feelings have been hurt, or because it seems that people are not listening. But we are obligated to shine that light. Someone is diligently seeking. If you don't believe that, then how did you come in contact with the light? You were seeking. I was seeking.
Amen.
We must believe that there is a you and I out there somewhere that's trying to find truth.